Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday. Yes, it is all happening this morning right here with me and with Lebang, and later on with Gord Laws, who'll be joining us as soon as he remembers that he had to wake up this morning to be a part of the show. Hey, Lebang.
Hey, Gareth.
What's happening with you?
Dude, you know me, taking every week as it comes, chilling like a villain, sipping on penicillin, tired as ever, but always happy to wake up and face another day.
Awesome. Very
How are
good.
you? You look so
I'm
summery, bro.
I feel summery. I feel happy and healthy. I went to gym yesterday and on Sunday. I'm getting where I want to get. And before you know it, you know this. I mean, I talk about it and it drives people crazy, but like in the blink of an eye, it's going to be Christmas. So we
Yep,
better all get into summer, whether you think you're ready for it or not. It's happening.
that is
It's
the
happening.
truth. There's
I
already
just
like
wish.
Christmas decorations up. Like, if you're not careful, just be
Right.
wary. There's already Christmas decorations up in the shops, blah, 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 blah. So just prepare yourself. Like the day
Like
after Black Friday, you'll see it'll start
immediately.
shining outside immediately at midnight. At midnight.
When is Black Friday?
Last Friday of November. So like a month from now, I'm assuming, like
Oh,
25th,
please.
26th, 27th.
Please. Christmas will be here long before then in the shops. I went to the shops yesterday, and there was Christmas music playing. You know, it's the most wonderful time of the year
Oh
already. I
Lord.
promise. Mhm.
Save us. Save us.
The only thing that would make my life better right now, because I'm a happy guy. I don't need a lot to keep me happy. I mean, I'd like a couple of $100 million, but I mean that would be
That'll be
ridiculous. So
nice.
that would be nice. Who wouldn't
Oh,
want that? I don't see
come
anyone
on.
turning that down. I don't see anyone going, nah, I'd rather no, I'd rather not have money. I'd rather be poor.
Yeah,
I don't see
you
anyone
can
saying that.
keep it. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
not a single
I mean,
person.
yeah, that would help. That would really help if if I had a huge pile of money that I didn't know about that was hidden somewhere. That would be really
Mm,
useful because this time of year, let's just be perfectly honest with ourselves and say there is a lot of strain and stress around money. And it doesn't matter how much you think you have, or how much other people think you have, or how much other people have.
mm,
Everybody at this time of year is going, oof. So I've got to think about Christmas presents. I've got to think about
yep.
holidays. There are a whole lot of other expenses that start to, tick over in your head.
Mm,
And also because it's this time of year, you're thinking about, kind of doing things for other people. Well, I mean, most of us are. And
mm,
unfortunately or fortunately, if you have the means to do something for someone else, sometimes it's a money thing, sometimes it's a time effort thing. I mean, there are
mm.
lots of people who need help at this time of year. So, there's a lot of that going on, I think, right now in people's heads. But
Yeah.
have you heard all the Diwali fireworks this last night? I thought, wow, this thunder and lightning is pretty strange. It doesn't sound like normal. Then I realized, no, it's actually, despite the rain, it's Diwali, and all these fireworks are going off around me. Because you see, what's nice about living in South Africa, and I'm not a big anti or pro fireworks person. I love seeing fireworks. Always makes me feel really festive and happy. So I'm not one of those people who's running around saying, "Oh my God, stop banning the fireworks." But I get why animal lovers are really uptight about fireworks. I get it. And also people who have kids that are trying to sleep because this stuff happens at like 11, 12 at night. And then it's going to wake kids up. And, we do live in close proximity to each other. So there is now,
Yeah.
like, yesterday we were talking with Mash and he was saying these generators make such a racket. Like he has neighbors who have generators now and next to them, and he says it's very loud and very annoying. And I understand there are a lot of people who feel that way about fireworks, but I have to say there's something kind of cool about all of it because
It
you know,
is. It
October and
is.
Diwali. I mean, there's Halloween coming up, which people like to dress up for. Then there's
Mm,
November, which is the slide down into the festive season. And
And then
people are
there's
just
also there's
let people
guy
be
folks for
guy
those who
folks.
still celebrate that, you
You
know.
know, I don't know anyone who's very who's very rigid about Guy Fawkes Day, especially here in
Mm.
South Africa, because it's not really, but neither is Halloween really our thing.
I was about to say,
But there are a
Halloween
lot
is also not our thing. We literally just adopted it from the
of
States and we're just making it a thing because I guess it's a global thing now. But essentially, Halloween has literally nothing to do with South Africa. The only Halloweenish thing that I can think about that's South African is like Lisilo and like apartheid, stuff like that, But like generally, like Halloween is not our thing. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think you're right. Living in South Africa is essentially dope in that sense. Like there's so many different cultures, and we say this a lot, but it's
yeah.
because we mean it. Like it's literally the middle of the year, essentially, and boom, 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 here go the fireworks. So I just moved into a new neighborhood a couple of months ago, right? So I'm still, feeling things out, sussing out the vibes, and I
Hmm.
had completely forgotten about this holiday. So I'm seeing in the WhatsApp group, in the neighborhood WhatsApp group, oh, happy Diwali for those celebrating, blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. No, cool vibes. I'm sure they'll probably like Bry, Gareth. I got
Yeah,
woken
it's
up by
loud.
like, it's loud, and I've got like my entire neighborhood, like 80% of my neighborhood is celebrating this thing. So I'm like, holy crap, this is loud. This is a lot. Let's see if I can survive it. So the first night, which I guess was like Diwali Eve or like the
Right.
pre-day or whatever, that's when it begins. So I'm hearing these things. I'm like, okay, this is cool. This is nice. And then like not only do I hear all these loud bangs, but then they start playing music. Now it's like boo, 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 I'm like, okay, this is cool. Maybe it'll end. Dude, it went on for like 5 hours. So these people are partying all the
Oh,
way till the morning. And I didn't mind, but at least invite me. Like, just invite me so I can see, the vibes. I literally let it go. I'm like, it's cool. They've done their thing. The next day is
uh,
the actual day. Now it's like it's shaking. My kids are picking up like little leftover firework things all over the yard because now these fireworks have fallen into our yard. It was chaos. It was chaos. Oh my gosh. And then it was raining and then there was load shedding. Getting the kids to sleep was just a joke yesterday. It was a joke because as soon as it's like, okay, good night, mommy, I'm like, good night. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, dude, it was, yeah. So, yeah, it was just a
um,
learning curve for me, essentially.
well, look, I don't let off fireworks, so I don't really I have a dog in this fight, so to speak. And if other people do, and they do it right next door to me, I'll tolerate that stuff if it's your thing to do. Just like we all have to tolerate each other. It's a bit of give and take, hey. I mean,
100%.
you're gonna have people at your house one day, and you're gonna be making a noise, and then they're gonna go, "Oh, Lebang and her family," but then they're gonna
Yeah.
remember the time you didn't make a noise about Diwali,
Yeah, but the difference is I'll probably extend an invite. It's the right thing to do. Hey neighbor, by the way, we turning up. You are, let me allow you to come or not come, but to just
Well,
leave you out.
speaking of that, I mean, one of the expenses I'm looking at is I've got to sort out this area right kind of next to my house because I'm doing a Christmas thing which my family have done for my parents have done it for the last 40 years with 1 or 2 years where they've missed out. But
Mm,
mostly it's been a tradition for 40 years or so where they invite like all of their close friends. It's usually between 50 and 100 people, which is a lot of people to have at your house.
yeah,
And
that is.
the kids come and everything else, and everybody sings Christmas carols. And it's usually like somewhere near the first or second week of December. And my mom said to me when she turns 70, she's not doing it anymore. One of us has to take it over. So it's obviously fallen to me now. So I'm going to have to do that. But I will be inviting my neighbors so as to not have the
Mm,
problem you just mentioned now.
there
So
you
that they
go.
so they don't feel like I'm first of all doing something that's not including them, and second of all, so I have their buy-in, you know.
Exactly. That's how
So,
you win.
Snae says, I used to love watching the fireworks at the Big Ben in London on New Year's Eve, one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. Yeah, those big firework displays are wow. It doesn't matter how
Yeah,
old you are,
they're
doesn't matter
stunning.
how Yeah. I mean, like a really good fireworks display is still one of the most awe-inspiring things you can see because it's happening there in 3D in front of your
Mm,
eyes, all the colors.
mm.
I mean, the people who make these things are just absolutely brilliant.
They're
And
so
you know,
talented.
when I was a kid, like a firework was like something went boom and then went pff, and it was nothing really to write home about.
Yo,
Now,
these days, yo, dude, there's levels to fireworks. Like, if you think you've seen a firework, wait till you actually go to a firework display. I think the first time I saw one was at like a rugby festival at St. John's, like many, many years ago, back in my heyday. And I just stood there and I was like, this is stunning. I forgot everything that I was going through. Like, none of my little teenage problems mattered because what I was seeing just like caught me smack bang in my life. And I was like, this is just absolutely beautiful. So when you do get to see really beautiful fireworks, just stop for a moment and let that sink in.
mm,
Because
yeah,
immediately after that, you go back to life. Like life just continues. But being able to
beautiful.
just see like that's just the lights and damn, yeah, it really makes you appreciate the fact that you're there, like in that moment. It's something else.
Ugh, apparently, these pieces of shit that call themselves climate activists, these people. If you ask me who the terrorists of the modern age are, it's these usually unemployed, usually spoilt and living with their parents, blue and yellow and green and pink haired, environmental. They always claim that they're working on behalf of some big cause like global warming, where absolutely nobody gets hurt by their activism except the poorest of the poor. It's usually the case. Someone has to clean up their filthy, dirty mess
Mm,
and they pour tomato soup on a priceless painting. Of course, none of them could paint anything. If you even put them to work for 1,000 years in front of a canvas, they'd come up with absolutely zero of artistic merit. But apparently now Congo Chris says another group of these people attacked another painting. It was a Monet that was attacked with mashed potatoes. And I
oh
saw this.
man.
Ugh, please. I saw this the other day. Climate protesters, it's always climate people. I mean, do these people really think that they're helping the environment in any way whatsoever? How does it help the environment to glue yourselves to the floor of the Porsche Museum, which is what these people did?
But
And
needed to go potty.
I just have to give full credit to the people who work there. Well done to the staff who simply left, turned off the heat and lights, and
Yeah.
locked these people in. And then they suddenly realized, oh shit, we're glued to the floor. Now we need to shit and piss, and we
I
need to eat,
mean,
and we need
the
to drink
least you
water.
can do is just put on a nappy. If you're really committed to your cause, my brother, then put on a bloody nappy so you can do your thing and then continue to, do whatever you think you're doing because you think you're doing a thing. This is so pathetic. I actually have no words on this. Like, I'm disgusted at the level of boredom that is currently
They,
within us.
they also threw cake at King Charles's wax statue at Madame Tussauds in London. Now, again, you know how many artists and genuinely talented craftsmen have been at work on each of those wax statues. It takes a long, long time. If you've ever watched them doing anything like that in a documentary or something, you will have seen that they have to thread each hair in. They have to then make the wax mask. They have to get it exactly right. There's someone who makes each little line on the skin, that makes the eyes, that makes the teeth, that makes all of these things to make these incredible waxworks. And people from all over the world go to these museums so that they can take a picture next to them or whatever. So these assholes have smashed a cake into it. Now, someone has got to fix that. Guess who? It's not the enemies of climate change. It's not people who are pumping CO2 into the atmosphere. It's some poor janitor who has to go and get a bucket and a mop. Someone who gets minimum wage has to go and clean up the cake. And then all those craftsmen and artists, instead of making another wax work of someone else,
Mm,
have to
mm,
go back and fix King Charles, which is just stupid and a total waste of time. Really,
mm,
we've got to see some of these people shot so that the rest of them will stop because these are not brave people. These are not
at all.
brave activists who are going to
At
change the
all.
world. These are cowardly nobodies who are
No,
looking for attention
100%.
for themselves.
100%. I
Outrageous.
love
Anyway,
I love Derek's
what,
comments. Sorry, quickly. Derek says, "Shame they're so far removed from solving actual problems that they're truly embracing the 21st century way of using feelings as facts. Fuck the hard work others have done. It's me that's important." I was literally having this conversation on the weekend about how we're living in a time where everybody feels entitled, everybody wants to be involved in something, but nobody's willing to put their elbows in the grease anymore. They just want to arrive there and be like, we want you to notice us. We're not going to work for it,
All the
but we're
credit,
going to demand
none
it.
of the work.
What the
Yeah.
fuck? I'm so livid. I'm so livid.
No, it's just enough already. Hey, Gordo.
Yeah.
Gord Laws is here.
Morning,
Gord.
champions. I feel like I missed Positive Tuesday. How's it going?
No, we started off with lots of festive cheer and excitement, but unfortunately, the story came up with one of our listeners in the comment section that they said, "Oh, look at these protesters who glue themselves to the floor of a museum, or spray tomato soup all over a priceless painting or whatever." And this is just something that maybe I have more of an issue than other people. I mean, I was more upset by the Taliban blowing up the Buddhas of Bamiyan than I was about them converting everybody at gunpoint to the most heinous form of like militant Islam. What bothers me is not what bothers other people. Remember when they had that Tahrir Square protest in Egypt, when they changed the government and the Muslim Brotherhood took over from Assad, I think it was. No, not Assad. Assad's in Syria. Anyway, the Egyptian president, whose name escapes me, Mubarak, was it? Could have been Mubarak. I'm not sure. Either way, the only thing that bothered me about that was that the Egyptian museum was right on Tahrir Square. And I thought all those priceless human artifacts, those things that will tell every person on earth things that no protester in that crowd ever could, these are valuable things that belong to the whole world, not just to Egypt. And we've got a bunch of people who are protesting the here and now that have no respect for the then. None of them could ever fashion anything like that with their own hands ever again. And it bothers me. I mean, like, I know people will say, "Oh, it means you're putting things above people." Yes. Yeah, there are a lot of people who can't even make those things. Most people couldn't make those things. I mean, most people can't. If you give them a lump of clay or you give them a set of paints, they couldn't create anything worthwhile.
We should make a rule where if you're going to like terrorism an object, you have to arrive with your own replacement object.
Right.
Yeah,
okay,
let's do that.
Burn down the art gallery, but we've all done a drawing. So we'll burn it down and we'll put these up. This Andy did a lovely litho print. He's got a beautiful drawing of his cat. So we'll be replacing the Mona Lisa with that.
Oh, look at this. You're getting lots of compliments here. Rebellious Ruth saying Gordon is looking so fly. Kelly says, Gord Laws, happy to see you. Good morning, guys. Gord. Durance. Yeah. Lots of people talking to you here this morning, Gordle.
Thanks,
so, Gord, what's been happening with you? Where have you? Are you in Cape Town now and settled in after your trip?
I've been here for 2 months. It feels like I'm back in the swing of things. Cape Town's getting warm again, which is nice. I know it's lame to talk about the weather, but when I was away, I skipped winter, and like blah blah yak schmack, the whole body change thing. Heat used to be like my greatest fear. Seriously, heat, then Parktown prawns. That's my two biggest fears in life. So I did a Cape Town summer, which is quite a thing, and then I did a European summer. And
this week on the Auto Trade.
Jesus, what was that?
It was the spirit of George Meany.
The spirit of auto.
Sorry, you were saying you did a Cape Town summer and then you did a European summer.
European summer was brutal. I mean, somebody should really do something. I don't know, maybe go and like sit in a Porsche museum, or just like this climate shit's getting out of control. Somebody needs to take action. And I was like, shit, I hope, because Cape Town is like a month or so, maybe 6 weeks behind Joburg in terms of seasonal change. I hope I get like the tail end of winter. And I had like maybe 4 days of Cape Town, miserable, cold, wet, windy winter. And I was like, fuck this, I'm over it. So it's getting properly warm now. And I'm all about that life. Rollerblading. I'm the fabulous dancing disco queen of the promenade with my little Bluetooth speaker. It's a vibe.
Nice, dude. Are you roller skating down the promenade? That's your thing.
Rollerblading.
Inline
skating, this with the maneuverable guys,
That's very nice.
Roller skates versus rollerblades is a political issue, and it's so ridiculous. Like, I'm all for anybody doing what they like. I'm not trying to shit on people who enjoy roller skating, but it's like Apple and Android, where persons only ever had an Apple phone, and they say that they're better than Android. If you've had both, by all means, choose what you like. But roller skates are like mandatory if you do roller derby, and roller derby is generally quite popular with like the woke and the LGBTQ plus. My one buddy Andrew put it beautifully. He said, like, not everyone who does roller derby, not every one of his female start this again. Not everybody that does roller derby is a gay woman, but all of the gay women do roller derby. So they're like, you're only allowed to do it on roller skates on quads. So therefore, quads are better than skates.
This is very interesting. I had no idea that there was a political element to something as crazy as rollerblading.
In order to be part of Woke Club, you have to do roller derby. You have to ride quads. So therefore, quads are better than inline because that's what we ride. And it's like, well, have you tried them? So it's a difference between a quad bike and a motorbike in terms of maneuverability. And when you try and debate this with someone who's only ever ridden quads but knows that they're better, you say, well, have you ever tried one? And it's like, no, we're kind of not allowed to, but they're better. So it becomes a philosophical, political debate. So when someone says like, oh, you roller skates, I'm like, no, I prefer a thing that's more maneuverable and just generally more efficient and more fun.
Speaking of political things, our Lebang, who I never thought would be a Karen, has done something very Karen-y. I heard you signed an online petition. I'm signing an online petition. Did you really sign an online petition, and what was it for?
I did, but it's because you inspired me. I mean, after our conversation last week, I'm like, if Gareth Cliff can sign these online things, then hey. It was actually for a good cause, though. It wasn't just like for fluff. There is, I think, Netcare in Belito in Durban. They're like shutting down the whole childcare center. Like every single Netcare that side is now just shutting it down. All physicians, all gynecologists, everybody that's been operating within. Dude, isn't that just wild? Like KZN just can't catch a break.
Netcare are shutting down childcare centers, their own ones that they don't.
Their own ones. So like the private care.
Like with machine guns and shutting down other people's childcare centers.
Dude, no. their own like personal services that they've been offering for years and years. Doctors that have built their things in there are all just being told, look, as of January 2023, you guys are out because essentially we don't need you anymore and we need to make space for more important, I'm using inverted commas, more important medical services like surgery, blah, blah. So it's just like, it's crazy. It's insane. I was like, I don't even live in Belito, but I feel bad for these parents and these kids that are ultimately going to be born into the space where how far must they travel for these services? And if they're starting with Netcare Belito, I feel as though they might just, keep going down the Netcare list of other hospitals that, essentially, we don't need this as much. It's bollocks. So I signed.
Is their list alphabetical? So Netcare Belito would obviously be second after Netcare somewhere with an A, and they're going to work their way down to...
Bro, your guess is as good as mine, but it's sad. And the reason why they're doing it, Gareth, is apparently now by law, they don't have to have those facilities available to the public and to people. So it's up to them if they want to have them there or not. So they've just chose to say, oh, well, fuck it.
Yeah, but surely, I mean, they're a private company, Netcare. As far as I can tell, they should do whatever is profitable. If you're a private business, why should you be providing care if it's not making you money? I don't feel strongly about that, and I know how parents must feel if that's what you depended on. But then you should have medical aid, and you should be buying Netcare products if you like Netcare to be in your area.
God,
if you don't want them
there, Gareth. Jeez,
no, it's true. No. We have to have.
You've got to at least empathize with people protesting free childcare facilities. I agree with you. It's obviously not a government thing.
They're not free. And nothing in this world is free. The only thing that you can protest, if you want to protest something that you think is, in inverted commas, free, is public stuff. Like if the government was shutting down childcare.
We don't go protest total, absolute service delivery failure in this country. Like we just say, like, oh shit, okay, load shedding over
dinner. When you say who are you talking about? Because there are a lot of people
South
who do.
African people, we don't take to the streets and protest.
That's not true. There are probably service delivery protests right now today. I guarantee you in some part of South Africa that's happening. Because
I hope so, because I don't see that shit.
There are, and there are parts of South Africa that have had no services for the last year, maybe 2 years, maybe even more. We know about these things, and sometimes you hear about them in the news, but they've become so, oh, well, those poor people in that part of the country are protesting again. Oh, who cares? It's not going to sell newspapers. We don't need to print that. So they don't. People do protest, Gordo, and frankly, I think that there are a lot of apathetic South Africans, but there are also lots of people who are genuinely upset and have every right to be. But we can't be upset with a private company, Lebang, pulling out of place that is not making.
Look, it's essentially the point is these very doctors and physicians and gynecologists and pediatricians, all of them themselves are not happy with this. Number one, it's October. You're telling me that this thing that I've been doing for the past 30 years is suddenly in January going to stop and I'm on my own. It just feels as though, and I'm sure there's way more layers to the story, but from what I picked up, the community's pissed, the doctors themselves are pissed, and it just seems like they're just cutting it, like, sorry guys, you're on your own, you're screwed, versus give us some time, let us ease into this. This is an important part of the ecosystem. Like, if I've been going to the same freaking pedo for like the past all my kids, now suddenly
I wouldn't refer to the doctor as a pedo. Like
pediatrician, those who know, okay.
I struggle with checking my step count on my pedo meter because I'm like, I don't think I can score high on this pedo meter. Like, on the one hand, I've become super attached to my step count and the fact that I'm in the top 98% of people. I mean, this for me is ridiculous, to be in the top 98% of people doing anything physical, except maybe marathon sex, which I obviously am great at. But like, I opened that thing and I'm like, every time I'm like, I got to check how I'm doing on the pedometer.
You must say it properly. You must say it properly. It's a pedometer. If you say a pedometer, then it's a whole.
It says pedometer, and I'm just like, okay. So I don't know if we should refer to these folks as pedos.
Tomato, potato.
The people are upset because they can't take their kid to the pedo, and I think that Gareth's being quite curmudgeonly, but makes a good point that these are not government-funded things. It's a tricky one,
You have no right to complain about something you're not paying for. Sorry, you don't.
Look, people are going to be upset, man.
It's like me going and hanging around outside the supermarket near my house, and as people come out with their groceries, complaining about how much they paid for them. Like, you shouldn't be paying that for that. I mean, what a stupid thing to protest. And if you think about it, it is not. I mean, I don't know the facts here, Lebang. You may have a whole lot more information on this than I do, but just based on, and I understand you're sympathizing with the other parents because 100%. You know how that feels. Right. Mm-hmm. So you're not actually complaining about Netcare as much as you are going, I'm in solidarity with these parents. I know what I need.
I signed the petition, and I feel like I did a thing, and I want to see if petitions actually do a thing. Like, if this is us, if this is the new way of protesting and being on the streets, holding up our little signs and stuff. I mean, let's see, because there's a lot of people signing. It's the point. Right. The same way that a lot of people are signing your petition with get rid of the pit bulls. It's also catching a lot of heat. Let's see if they get rid of the pit bulls. Is the point.
Is there a pit bull? I feel like I'm out of the no. I like to do the show sort of on a monthly-ish basis because it brings me into the present and it connects me to all the stuff that's going on. So
let me help you.
Dickheads screwing themselves to the floor of the Porsche factory. Gareth being a dickhead about the fact that climate change is not a thing. We've got pedos getting their facilities taken away, and then
hang on, Gordo. Just to clear the decks here, make sure that everybody's on the same page. First of all, I am not a climate change denier. I just think that all the people who complain about climate change have no idea of what they're talking about.
Oh yeah, like slacktivism in general. Like people with a brand new iPhone that they change once a year. That's terrible for the environment. That they use to complain about money. Like I hate capitalism with my 20,000 rand phone that my mom bought me.
Yeah, right. I think that is the ultimate hypocrisy. So first and foremost, I don't deny that the climate is changing. You'd have to be stupid and you'd have to be completely ignorant in every way to look at the world and to say that humans aren't having some effect on nature, on the environment, on the atmosphere, on the air we breathe and everything else, right? You don't have to look very far to figure that out. But I think the kind of people who go on and on and on about climate change and call themselves activists are people who would, if they didn't have climate change to moan about, find something else that was big and unsolvable, attach themselves to it, and then claim the
Okay,
virtue.
now I'm completely with you. Now I'm completely with you, because it's not necessarily the issue in question; it's the way that people approach issues. And I've got a lot of views on that as well. I completely agree with that. Like,
So
people
the other one,
complain on the internet thinking that they've made a difference.
I didn't sign any petitions for the pit bulls, Lebang, even though we talked about it. I just said the other day that even though I'm not, I mean, one of my best friends has a pit bull, and she said to me, she totally agrees with my point of view, even though she loves her dogs. I don't want to get into that whole discussion again, but all I said to Lebang last week was, Lebang, I'm so angry if you're bringing this up again. Now I have to explain it for the second time. Is that, why is it that 90% of all the dog attacking human stories are pit bulls? I'm not saying that all pit bulls are terrible dogs, but just like you said about the lesbians on roller skates, it's funny how all the dog attacks are pit bulls. You know?
I mean,
And
no, those are two things I wasn't necessarily connecting, but just for
I
the,
was.
yes, I know what you mean. Like,
Yeah,
there's
right.
there's correlation and cause, and sometimes it's hard to draw a line. I do know that straight women do and are allowed to play roller derby, and I do know that there are lesbian women who aren't interested in it. However, like my buddy Andrew said, not everyone who does roller derby is a gay woman, but all the gay women he knows do roller derby.
Well, not every pit bull attacks human beings, but all the human beings that have been attacked by mostly pit bulls. That's all I'm saying.
On my rollerblading adventures, I got attacked by a dachshund, and I've got a lot of love for dachshunds, right? And the thing that I love about dachshunds is that they believe in their heart of hearts that they're properly terrifying, like hugely intimidating dogs. And like I know you may remember I dated that absolutely terrible woman years ago. She was the incarnation of Satan on earth. And there were a few things though that I got out of that relationship that were borderline good. And one of them was a couple of trips to Spain. And then the other one was she had dachshunds, and I became very fond of them. They're kind of yappy and neurotic and annoying, and like, but I grew this love for them, and I decided I'm not gonna like have hatred or animosity towards an entire nation, country, and ethnicity of people because of her, and like hate the Spanish. And I'm also not going to like hate dachshunds because they're cool. So every time I see a dashie, I'm like, oh my God, look at this little dashie. But one of them ran me off the promenade the other day, and it was so proud of itself. I was like, it was you, my guy. I'm skating, and the next thing, and this thing is coming after me at pace. And I turn and look at it, and I'm like, oh shit, look at that. A dachshund's chasing me. So I speed up a little bit, and I get away from it. But then it stood with like its paws bent inwards and looked at me like, yeah, you better run. So it's not just pit bulls. Dachshunds also have you if they get a chance.
Well, we got to look at some headlines. I want to start off with this one. I thought you might appreciate this story. 2 people have been arrested after an alleged bribe involving Glenfiddich whiskey and 50,000 rand to make a docket disappear. This is in Rustenburg. Okay, these are the levels at which you now need to bribe policemen in order to get your docket to disappear. So, Zuzumuzi, Mankoyana, and Peter Selena, who's 50, Zuzumuzi is 28, appeared briefly in the Klerksdorp Magistrates Court on Monday, facing a charge of corruption. The case against them was postponed to October 31st for a bail application. They were arrested on Sunday after they allegedly offered an investigating officer 50 grand to get rid of a docket involving their friend, who is a former senior municipal official. So we know what this is. The pair was nabbed at the Hawks offices moments after handing over 25,000 rand and a bottle of Glenfiddich whiskey to the investigating officer. Their vehicle was searched, and 45,000 rand was also found in cash. It's a lot of money being driving around
with a lot of cash.
Dude, like, firstly, what are people doing with that much money?
25 is what, 70K. And the dude was like, you see, that was the problem. You said they paid a bottle of Glenfiddich and 50 grand. Now it's like they had 45 extra grand. They only gave 25. That's why if you search the vehicle and you're like, dude, you just offered me 25K and a bottle of Glenfiddich. In your car, you've got 45 more K and 3 more bottles of Glenfiddich. That was what did them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, they were definitely going to take that. I mean, these are cops we talk about. The views of the show, obviously not of the show, but I may or may not know for a fact that you can literally get your docket taken away for way less. Like a bowl of
Yeah.
Glenfish is literally just like the cherry on top. And
but
Gord, you're
GC
absolutely right.
mentioned, because I agree with that, but GC mentioned that this was a person related to a higher up government official. This is like corporate shagging up and shagging down. You don't try to get a docket lost where the docket is in favor of a government official by a lower government official. You go to that government official's boss and you bribe them. You don't bribe someone to lose a docket against their own boss.
100%.
Well, I also think you've got to know who you're bribing. And like Lebang says, go for the lowest hanging fruit. Like some of these people, do you remember Nomvula Mokonyane changed like a big water tender because she got a box of meat? No, I don't know how much, a big box, maybe it was a hind quarter or something. But, essentially a box of meats are way cheaper than this cash bribe of like, 25 grand plus a bottle.
Water tender just made me think of like how bullshit food branding, like if this is like a way of packaging water in a little crispy strip, when people are like smash burger and it's like, that's just mince, mate. Like they didn't smash the meat. It's just a dickhead way of saying patty, water tenders, new water in a little strip that you can dunk in dip. Anyway, it was funny to me. But, so a box of meat is like, what are we talking here? What is it, Wagyu, and does it need to be transported?
No, it's definitely not Wagyu.
It's a cooler box with Viennas in it. Like,
nope, not even. You know what it is? It's Wors. You know what Wors is like? When you cut Wors up and you open it, it's that.
Oh,
it's
smash Wors. I've had that.
There we go. That's what it is. That's what the boxes contain.
No, it's not. It's expensive stuff. So, all right, here's a story that I think you're going to love. Amy Schumer is going out on the town and doing a new special. Do you want to see the beginning of the Amy Schumer special? Because I thought this was quite interesting. You ready?
Not really, but okay, I'm here for it.
Here's Amy Schumer. She walks out onto the stage, and there she is, looking terrific.
That's nasty and uncalled for.
Oh man, I thought this was Positive Tuesday.
There's enough reasons to like go after Amy Schumer's.
Like number one, she's not funny at all.
She's not funny.
Like zero.
She's a pain in the ass. The stuff she talks about is contrived as hell. They're gonna call her a pig and make it about the fact that she's I used to, and it's like, I do not want to belabor the topic, but it comes up. Like I used to be on the show. You were always very nice to me. You welcomed me every week, and I was the size of a large planet. I had my own moon, and it was because I was at least as entertaining and funny as I am now.
Don't remind me of my mistakes.
Yeah, but it's like, you had a lot to give me shit about, and you didn't need to resort to that. If you've got to resort to the fat pig thing for Amy Schumer, then you're not paying attention. There's 1,000 things you can be mean to her about other than what she looks like.
100%.
Here's a test. Listen to the audio of Amy Schumer. Listen to the audio. You were a dick to me all the time, but you raised your game. You challenged yourself to do better than the obvious. If you listen to the audio of Amy Schumer's comedy, it sucks. You don't have to see her.
And that is enough. That is enough to throw you off of her as a concept, and you can just walk away and Bob is your uncle. I completely agree. She's terrible at this.
If you took a person of medium intelligence and you say to them, listen to this comedian's audio comedy, and ask them at the end what they thought, they'd be like, my God, that was agony. And you'd be like, oh, by the way, she also happens to be quite overweight.
I just realized something. I'm not gonna include you two in jokes like that. I'll save those for another day of the week, because you both went so super serious on something so
another day, and have me on pleasant day.
I love it.
So here's potentially the new Prime Minister of the UK. Rishi Sunak, who everybody's talking about now. Who knows how long he will last, considering the 100-odd days that his predecessor, not even 100 days, like a month and a bit, that his predecessor had in the office. Who knows, though? He is elected as leader of the Conservative Party, which means he's becoming Prime Minister. He's going to make his first remarks at 2:30 p.m. today, and he will be doing that in Parliament. He will also be. Boris Johnson, by the way, pulled out of the race this Sunday, leaving a straight fight between Sunak and Mordaunt, which he won. And a lot of people saying, well, Richie Sunak's such a good-looking guy. That's why they like him. Apparently, he has lots and lots of money. He comes from a very, very wealthy background. Either he's self-made or it's family money. I'm not sure. But he seems like a very together guy. So let's see what he does. And why the hell not? I did see one or two lame comments about how, oh, well, typical of the United Kingdom that they can't hang on to a prime minister for more than X number of days. So this guy's not going to last. We'll see. Rusty just reminding us that poor old Liz Truss, only 44 days. And that reminds me of this, an interesting graph. Look at this, Gord and Lebang and everybody else. People in charge of the UK named Elizabeth. And here you can see the graph. So for August, right up to September, there's only one person called Elizabeth. That's Liz Truss. And then, Elizabeth II, the Queen. Then suddenly it spikes to 2 for the little bit that they overlapped. Then the Queen dies, it goes back to 1. And now, of course, it's at 0. So an interesting graph that you needed to see this morning of 2022 and people called Elizabeth in charge of the UK. Useful. While we're on graphs, can I show you something else that's useful? I follow an account called Terrible Maps, and this is one of my favorite things. So here is a map from Terrible Maps. Electricity consumption in Europe in 1507. Zero. It's 0 kilowatt hours everywhere, but it's a great map, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably not entirely accurate because the human body gives off electricity and there's like lightning and stuff. So there would have been some consumption of electricity. Like if you got struck by lightning, you would have consumed the kilowatt.
No, you're not consuming it. It's there. There was electricity, but it was not consumed. It's not like they switched on a kettle, Gord.
So if you get a shock from static electricity from rubbing a Maltese poodle too furiously, that's not consuming electricity.
By the way, while we're on things that offend Gord and Lebang, here's another great story. This, I think, comes off of Twitter from STV News. It says here, this is an old story, but apparently the slur words, and I'm upset about this because I call one of my friends one of these words. The slur words.
On this cancellation Tuesday with Gareth, where I'm going to be associated with the shit you talk about. I guess that's why.
Listen, you could always disagree, and then people will love you.
I outright disagree.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Because people are so dumb that they choose a side. Anyway, the slur words Mongol, Mongoloid, and Mongolism are to be removed from the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary following a campaign by a Scottish-based organization.
Oh, not Mongolism. Gosh.
Yeah.
No, how are we going to live without Mongolism as a word?
What are we going to do?
You see, now my issue with this is that the words don't not exist because they're now officially nasty, right? So all they have to do is in the definition go a derogatory term that is used to describe whatever it is to describe, whether it's these words or other words and stuff. Like I found out not recently, but like in my adult life, that like the word Oriental is an offensive word to refer to Asian things, and I'm like, okay, shit. Like now I know that like that's not a word to use. Prior to that, I'd seen it on TV and stuff, and I was like, okay, I now know that that's not good to use. But like it doesn't disappear. It can be marked there as like a nasty way to refer to XYZ, whether it's Mongolism, whatever, and like. You can't just remove it and now the word's not in the dictionary, so it doesn't exist.
Work like that.
It works the other way. People use a word enough and it goes in the dictionary.
Whether when you remove a word from the dictionary, you're not removing it from people's memories. It doesn't magically disappear. And that's the problem. It's literally the same thing as these freaking climate people that are just like messing up the paints, and it's like you guys are not
the word plastic from the dictionary to get rid of it, right? We've got too much plastic in the ocean, we're taking that out of the dictionary. We got too much carbon dioxide, we're going to take that out of the dictionary. Fixed.
Remove. Yeah, problem solved. Nothing's going to happen now. Hit refresh and see what happens. It's the same.
The problem is Metcare taking the word childcare facility out of the dictionary, and now that's kind of disappearing.
I agree with everything that you've just said. It's so childish to think I'm going to block my ears, then I won't hear this word, then it doesn't have, it doesn't exist. If I close my eyes, I don't see something, then it doesn't exist. It's like, don't take things out of the dictionary. what you're doing is you're making language poorer, because those words are not going to just suddenly disappear. I mean, I've got a couple of books in my house of archaic old words which they've thrown out of the dictionary, which someone went and dug up and found again. And some of these words are really, really useful. And they're words that obviously at the time people thought, oh, well, there's not much use for this. We'll throw it out of the dictionary. I feel that this will happen with mongoloid and all the other words that they think are rude.
It's a horrible thing to say. I knew that before this news, but honestly, like in seriousness, like you could check. It's the definition that changes. If people are protesting, this is an acceptable word to use. Now it's not an acceptable word to use. You go like, nasty, derogatory, unacceptable word to use, often used to refer to X or Y. But the book of archaic words that's been taken out the dictionary, that makes sense to me, because if the words have fallen out of use and they've become like so oldie worldy that no one knows what they mean.
Well,
so lit is added to the dictionary because enough people have said it that it's now a word. I don't like it. Lol is also in the dictionary.
I'm okay with those. I'm okay with all these new terms being added. In fact, that's part of language.
So if there's an old one no one says, then you remove it from the dictionary, not because we want to like make it nasty. So
here's one that we stopped using for about 300 years and now it's back. Petrichor, which is the smell of soil after the rain, which is a very appropriate word now because we had our first rains and you can smell it. And it's something that we lost that word. It was actually taken out of the dictionary. It stopped being used.
I get it though. Like, how would you use that in a sentence, Gareth? How would you use that in this? Oh, this afternoon's petrichor was just delightful. Like,
yes, I love the smell. I love the smell of petrichor. And I think
it sounds too serious for what it is. I mean, it's rain on soil. It sounds way too serious for what it is. Let's just call it rain on soil. Petrichor sounds like a brand.
When you're delighted by the smell of petrichor, are you like petrified?
Hey.
Maybe something.
Petricated?
I don't know. I just love it. And I do love, I just love the way that you guys say that there are acceptable and unacceptable words. I'll use every word I like. Thank you very much.
No, I'm not saying that there are or there aren't. I'm saying that
the told how to speak by Gord laws or Lebang Hosana.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there's a way for the dictionary, if they're so inclined, because it's their own private dictionary, Gareth, and they're printing it with their own money, and they can dictionary whatever they want a dictionary. They can. They can amend the definition of a word to reflect the feelings of the people involved, rather than remove it, like you say, kids with their fingers in their ears, and now it's gone. There, we solved language. We got rid of this nasty word. It's out of the dictionary.
I like Steve's contribution. He says, my pedo said that my petrichor is inflamed and swollen.
Sure. I mean, I'd be worried, bro. I'd be worried. That does not sound good at all.
Your pedo probably checked right up close. So petrichor's a noun, right? Like, the air was thick with petrichor. Or would you be like, it was a petrichor experience? Yeah. How would you use it in a sentence?
It's a noun. You got it right.
Okay.
First sentence. All right. So listen. We've got to get into a couple of things. I don't know what's happened to my throat this morning.
You're right. There's the petrichor just entering the system, eh?
All right. Stop it, you two. Let's just talk quickly about something that bothers Lebang, and we don't have to go on about this at length. But how much salary transparency should you have with your co-workers? I say none. I say
zero.
None. I think what you earn is nobody's business.
Keep that to yourself.
I agree.
Even your closest family and friends. I mean, none of my friends know how much I earn, and I don't want them to. None of my family know how much I earn. None of their business. I mean, maybe you should be open about that with your spouse, because you might have joint bank accounts, or you might share the responsibility of like the grocery bill or whatever. So maybe because you're in a marriage, that's the place to share the amount of money that you actually bring home. But your co-workers,
let that go.
It can only lead to pain.
And that's exactly what happened. So I've got a full-time nanny and a part-time nanny. And one grave day, they both sat down and decided to discuss money. So how much are you earning? Now, how much are you earning? And I didn't even know this conversation happened, but I just saw the change in energy. Suddenly my full-time nanny is asking a lot of questions like, yeah, look, I work really hard. I was thinking about a raise. And I'm like, why would she suddenly be asking about a raise when she's only been working here for 2 minutes? And then it hit me like crap. They probably sat and compared notes and what.
Right.
And yes, it was nonsense. So I am just not for that thing.
So I just want to, I'm guessing, and leaping to assumptions here, but I'm guessing that it's like the full-time rate versus the freelance rate that you would get in like
Yes.
creative industry, where because you haven't got the security of the ongoing thing, you pay freelancers more, but they have to take on more risk, and they also spend a lot of time without work. So did you then have to explain, like, look, the full-time job comes with perks and stuff like that?
I'm like, you live here. She doesn't. You eat with us. She doesn't. I'm literally having to explain these little things. Whereas, like, if you guys just didn't have this conversation, none of this would be happening. So my takeaway was just like, shut the fuck up when it comes to your money and keep it moving. Like, that's it.
But I mean, I agree with everything. So I'm not disagreeing with either of you. I wouldn't want to discuss it with people. I think it causes problems, especially among coworkers and that kind of thing. I had a situation where there was a bit of tension at a place that I worked because I found out that somebody that I thought worked just as hard as me was getting paid less. They're a female person. I took the boss to task, and it turned out that when they employed her, that was how much money she asked for. And I was super embarrassed. I was like, yeah, fair enough. When you joined us, you asked for X. We said, okay, shit, we'll give you that. When she, a year later, became your partner and joined, we asked her, how much do you want to come and work for us? She asked for Y. We said, okay, we'll give you that. And then 3 years later, she and I discussed it. I was like, I cannot, like, you earn a third less than me. This is outrageous. And that was what my boss explained. And I was like, man, I feel like a dickhead. But so I agree, it causes
you are a dickhead. Can I just stop you right in your tracks? I mean, I love you, Gordo, but what the fuck business is it of yours to go and fight for? Like, who do you think you are? Crusader Gord? Like, what grabs you? What grabs you that makes no, hold on. What is it in you that makes you put on a cape and grab your Captain America shield and go, I'm going into the boss's office to argue on behalf of someone who isn't me? Who do you think you are?
I think that's cool, man.
She and I were a partnership, and we did all of our work together. And it was
what?
I felt like I was being paid 1/3 more than the person doing the harder work. And
we need more people like you.
I'm also on personally close terms with my boss, and I went and wanted an explanation. And when my boss gave it to me, I felt like a dumbass. And there was also a practical reason. It was long ago. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying this was a time when I learned something that, like, there's more to just we pay according to who we think is nicer. And I was like, I felt like a dumbass.
None of your businessman comes to rescue someone of his business. Gord puts on his blue cape and his what do you call them? A mask.
You realize I did used to wear a cape and a mask,
yes,
but I wasn't fighting for equality of pay. I was fighting for everyone getting murdered.
Well, all around the world right now, feminists' twat lips have been clapping in unison over Gord Laws standing up for women in the workplace that didn't ask him to stand up for them. What a hero.
Firstly, it had nothing to do with her being a woman. And secondly, she did kind of ask me to stand up for her. And we, as a team and partners, went together to go and say, what the fuck?
Yes.
And the answer we got made me feel really, really stupid.
Yeah, exactly. And you were stupid, and your boss put you in your place, which was his job. That's why he's the boss.
He's also a lovely man, and he dealt with it very kind of fairly. He said, look, I can understand why you feel this way. You guys are very much a team. We appreciate you equally, but, like, we interviewed you separately and you asked for different
amounts. What you want. The thing is, so few people can talk.
Here's the whole point, and this is, I think, spot on. Vincent says, why didn't Gord just give his 1/3 to his partner?
I actually did say, when I was prior to getting egg on my face and realizing I was a dumbass, I actually did say, why don't you just pay us both? Why don't you just meet us both in the middle and pay us the same?
So you said, I'll take the sacrifice.
Yep. I said, split the difference and pay us the same.
And the boss didn't force you to do that after you'd offered to?
No.
And you didn't push the point and say, oh, I looked at my salary. I still got all my money and she still hasn't.
But she did get a raise, actually.
So you see, it works. It works.
I then stopped asking about the numbers. I don't know how much the raise was, but the boss was like, and you're right, person not Gordon in this equation. You do deserve some more money and we'll give it to you.
So you did a thing and you helped somebody is the point. So it was worth putting
10
on that
years
case.
ago, and I was embarrassed. And I'm not saying it went the way that I was hoping, but I did go and take up the cudgels. And then I realized that there's more to it than just who do we prefer and who do we like more. And so I was what do they call it? A teachable moment, which drives me fucking crazy because you can't teach a moment.
Dude, don't ever feel bad for doing something right and for helping somebody else. Don't ever feel bad. Ever.
It's like,
you don't.
This is a teachable moment. Let me correct you. And I'm like, what? You're going to sit with the moment and give it some maths advice, like a teachable moment. You're a teachable person, if teachable is even a word. God, I hate like crap internet bullshit.
Yeah. All right. Very nice. Well, Gord, you're my hero for this morning. I mean, I'm so excited right now because of that story. I don't even know what to say or where to take this. But luckily for you, it's 7:00. We got to take a break anyway. And hopefully when we come back, I'll have forgotten about Hero Gord and his unbelievable antics in the office space, in his cubicle.
You used to ride with me when I was a superhero, Gareth. You used to take me under your wing.
I used to enjoy Captain Beer, but I didn't like Captain None of Your Business. I think he's a fucking asshole. All right, it is 7:00. Let's get on with it. We've got lots of things to get to. Lebang and Gord are with us. Don't go in.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Ever seen this video on TikTok? I think we'll ask the editors to kind of put it up there. But whenever the petrol price goes up, this video becomes popular again, which has this person going to their car and pouring water in this like makeshift engine in the boot. And they're like, I don't know why everyone's complaining about petrol when you can just use water or this water system.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Right, we are live. It is Tuesday morning and it's just after 7:00. We got Gord Laws, we got Lebang Hosanna, and we got you. You must also like and subscribe on the YouTubes, please, because unlike none of your business, man, YouTube does actually count the count the likes and subscribes. And if you don't do them, then it just doesn't count us. Basically, we fall into the memory hole, and nobody cares. So we think you care about this show. You listen to it every morning. Then please like and subscribe, and tell other people to do it too, even if they don't like us, even if they hate this show. Make them like and subscribe anyway, just to bring a little change and difference into their world. You know, they might be stuck in a rut. They might be, I don't know, the kind of person who asks for less money from their boss than someone else.
Oh, Gareth, come on.
These people.
Come on. Just let it go.
We got Blind History coming up a little bit later on, which is one of my favorite things. And Blind History this morning is about Lucky Luciano, who was the original gangster in America. Oh, someday, and that day may never come, I will call upon you to perform a service for me. But until that day, accept as a gift on my daughter's wedding. The Godfather guys actually had a reunion the other day. I don't know if you know about that. But the cast, well, the ones who are still alive from The Godfather, all got together for a little reunion. And I'll show you that picture just now for fans of The Godfather, you know, just in case you're one of those people. Because what a great movie trilogy that was.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't like The Godfather, I'm terribly sorry for you. You've missed out on something very, very special. What a great movie. What an awesome cast. I mean,
It's
really.
timeless.
Isn't it great? The
It's a
Corleone.
classic. Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it in so long, but what I really remember about it was thinking it was quite good. Like, I watched it 20 years ago, and I was like, I remember thinking it was good. So before you leap down my throat for having the wrong opinion, but I remember one of them not being as good as the others. I think the third one was a bit sort of, I don't know, one of them was like set far in the future and didn't feel like it was connected to the others. That's vaguely what I remember about it.
I think you may be talking about 3, but I mean, in this picture, you've got Francis Ford Coppola, who was the director. You've got Al Pacino. Obviously, Marlon Brando's dead, so he wasn't in there. Diane Keaton, James Caan. Who else is in there? There's Talia Shire. There's I'm trying to think who the others were in this picture. If you recognize anybody who I haven't mentioned, then please do. But there they are. There's obviously Al Pacino. There's Robert De Niro in this picture.
Robert De Niro.
I'm recognizing the bald dude in the back. What's his name?
Yeah. What's his name? Robert something or another? I can't remember who he is. It's not Angelina Jolie's dad. I know that much. Oh, Robert Duvall. That's his name.
Robert Duvall.
That's him. Yeah.
So very nice. There's some of the people who got together for the Godfather reunion just the other day. I don't know how many.
I'm waiting for the rest of it. It's like did something happen there? It's like a bunch of old dudes got together for a photo to talk about when they used to work together. And then the photograph was taken, and here it is.
Yeah, so obviously people celebrate anniversaries, Gord. It's something that happens.
Yeah, but we don't put up a picture of like, this is Marlene and Bram from Kempton who celebrated their anniversary yesterday. Here's their photo. You'll see that there's a little nation.
So I would say 50 years is something worth making a fuss out of. I mean, 50 years of The Godfather. That's pretty wild. I do think it's worth getting together. And listen, a lot of people who were in the movies are not there for that picture because it's that long ago. So celebrate. Go on. I like it. And what a great movie.
Old flicks. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I was making coffee as fast as possible during the break, and I could hear the music of dun, 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 dun. I was like, whatever that is, it's a banger. Like, what were you advertising that banging tune in the background? And where can I get that sample to like bust a rhyme over?
Between Simpiwe and Homolemo in the studio, they find like music that we don't have to pay rights for. So you can use that, Gord. In fact, I saw a little video of Gord rapping over the weekend. You want to tell us about that?
This is something I do, Gareth.
Oh, man. Amazing.
But I haven't seen a video
for like 22 years. I'm that old. But that was karaoke. Normally what I do is like when I was in my 20s, I'm 41, I used to battle rap. But like hip hop is not my preferred. I like to freestyle. So hip hop's not my preferred thing because the beat's a lot slower. I like drum and bass. faster tempo and just a better sort of, for me I love hip hop. I'm a massive hip hop fan, but for me to perform, I like to enjoy the tempo of drum and bass. But also I didn't enjoy going up against somebody to tell them like to just basically tear them to pieces and say everything nasty you can, and you actually think like, this dude's pretty dope. But that was karaoke, because like I can't sing at all, like really at all, but I love karaoke. So ever since karaoke went like online and everything's on YouTube that they play, you can get just about any tune, like not everything, but they've got a lot of stuff. So it used to be like there was the flip book of CDs and you'd go through it and try to find something you like. So now you can think of a tune, because if like hip hop's got a weird thing where like rapping someone else's tune is like really hectically frowned upon. If Slipknot played a surprise Metallica cover at their concert, it would like make the rock and metal news as like the coolest thing ever just happened. But if one rapper like busted an Eminem song at his concert, that would be the end of them. So it's a way that I could get up and like do rap tunes I like, and then also maybe hopefully like get laid. So it worked. I did Jump Around by House of Pain, which is an old banger, and it's like it's my go-to.
And it worked. It worked. You did get laid, or what's the level of it working?
I was using that as a figure of speech. I was just trying to illustrate that it like gets a good reaction out of the crowd.
Sure.
Yeah, I
feel like karaoke is rigged. I feel like karaoke is rigged. Like when you go to a joint and there's karaoke out there, like whether it's a keg or a bar, or whatever. Why do the people that go up there always like sing so good? I don't get it. Like it's rare that you hear somebody actually like
people who sing really well ruin karaoke, and not just because they, you know, like they make other people feel inadequate, but it's like you've got this person who's a professional or semi-professional singer, or they're trained in theater, and they get up and they're like, look at me. It's like, we're not here for it's no one's there to watch professional singers sing. Karaoke is, people mistake it that it's an exercise in singing. It's an exercise in enthusiasm. If you great at singing, but you look uncomfortable up there, and you kind of like not. You can be terrible at singing, but if you're having fun and you're enthusiastic, it's brilliant. And if you can be a great singer, but you're nervous and you like having it. So showing fear is how you fail at karaoke, not being god awful at singing.
Not being good. Yeah. They should really ban professional trained singers from karaoke, because they ruin it for the rest of us. Like we're literally just there to have a good time, to like really just enjoy ourselves. And you get, then you're like, oh, Jodo, and no, bro, this is not theater.
Last time I was there was a person who was really good at singing, but she was like singing humorous songs, and she was like giving it horns for shit that was like funny, you know, singing like stuff that because there, I used to go party at the ultimate dive. When I lived in Cape Town previously, I used to drink plenty, and I lived near the Kimberley Hotel, which is like the ultimate dive bar in Cape Town, the oldest shit bar in Cape Town. And they had a karaoke night like once a week where this dude would come and set up, and like I was like, this is the best. There's karaoke night. But then this guy started coming, all dressed in a suit and shit. And he was clearly like a theater guy or like a wedding singer or something. And he would put in like 50 songs. He would arrive and like just put in loads of songs. So every third song was this guy, and everyone would be having a jaw, and I'd be failing at singing Total Eclipse of the Heart and putting swear words in it. And like, you know, the drunk chick that was always there would be like mumbling a whole tune, and then it was 2 or 3 songs, and then it was this guy. And he'd be like, you know, like Fred Astaire and doing his whole thing. Everyone would be like, oh God, like let's go have a piss. It's time to go outside. Like this guy's gonna go for a song.
Let me reiterate here, because I totally agree with Gord. It's an exercise in enthusiasm. You don't go to karaoke to be a brilliant singer. I mean, what do you think? There's a talent scout in the audience of a karaoke bar who's waiting to sign you up to a record company? I mean, do me a favor. And in any case, if you can sing, then it's all the more important that you kind of make it funny.
Have some fun with it.
Because if you're serious about it, if you go up there and you like belt out Whitney Houston, and I will always love you, and
everyone just goes and has a piss. Yeah,
exactly. People look at you and they go, "Oh, so boring."
Tough crowd.
If you change the words and I will always fuck you, ooh, then it makes it much more fun.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think of an example. It was last week, but this lady that can clearly sing well, she was singing like funny tunes, like stuff you wouldn't expect, and she was like giving it horns to like OG 80s classics. And I was just like, okay, yeah, she's obviously like does some form of serious singing in her life, whether it's for fun or for profit, and like come to karaoke and like get your theatrical like jaw on, and it's fine. So I'm not saying people who can sing shouldn't be allowed to play, but don't go up there and be like, this is my moment, everyone. How hard you will clap at the end of this. Piss off.
Yeah, because they're so hungry for a little bit of audience participation in the form of pure applause and love. But they've left their house tonight in their little, I don't know, their matric dance frock, so they can go and get like excited about Buddy Tyler covers.
Oh, don't get me started on leaving the house in a matric dance frock. Like people who go to the mall and get dressed up for it, like it's like they're about to literally, like they've been nominated for a Grammy, and tonight's the night.
Whoa, stop right there, because Lebang and I have had so many conversations about these people who go to the shops in their dress gowns and their slippers. Now you're bringing the entire opposite end of the spectrum to light, Gord, which is right. We need to discuss this. There are people. I remember my Afrikaans teacher at high school. Wow. This woman used to wear a different outfit every day. She was made up to the nines, but I mean, like, you know, slightly like, you know, an Afrikaans lady who overdoes the makeup. And I sort of respected that. I thought, you know, this woman, she takes dressing for the job seriously. I mean, for her, it was obviously a big part of the thing, was like every day she wears a different outfit. And there's something about that which is commendable. You know, it's like she's going to this trouble every time. I don't know a lot of people who would do that in their job, who would wear a different outfit for every day of the year. I certainly don't make that much of an effort when I just go to the office. Do you?
No, look. I think let's just keep it into the mall context, because this thing actually grinds my gears. I noticed it a couple of weeks ago when I went to Sandton. I went to Sandton like 5:30 p.m. Just went to fetch something at like the iStore. In my literal, like, you know, my little slippers and my onesie, because I actually don't give a rat's ass. People were dressed like they are going to the Emmys. I was like, whoa,
Exactly.
what is happening here? Full makeup face, 10 out of 10. Hair blown out to the gods. Freaking heels the size of... I was so
Somebody else has
confused.
done your hair and makeup for this. Like, you didn't do it yourself. You paid someone to get you ready for the mall. Now, you mentioned like having spoken about like people in their slippers and their nightgown, and how that bothers, I don't know, one or both of you. This is like opposite ends of a spectrum. You want to be somewhere in the green middle. Like, firstly, you're going out in public, so respect your fellow human beings and don't cover yourself in feces. And secondly, like, you're at the fucking mall. You know, like, I could understand if there was a restaurant in the mall where like your company prize giving was being hosted, but there's people who, like, it's Saturday or Sunday, it's mall day, they've bought an outfit for it. And I'm always just like, you're trying so hard to look like a wealthy jet setter that you might as well get a shiny pink billboard that says "not a wealthy jet setter," not a wealthy jet setter. And I wonder, like,
because wealthy people go to malls in jeans and a white tee. That is like literally it. Like, wealthy people aren't like walking around saying, "Oh, I'm so wealthy, bro. Oh my God, I can't stand all this wealth." But then you get like these random people in between. Who are like,
to me, it's not about wealth or not wealth. It's like wherever you are on the wealth spectrum doesn't matter. It's what part of your mind thinks the mall is your place to shine, because you're not dressing like that every day. If someone is like Gareth's Afrikaans teacher, that every day, regardless of circumstance, you get done up to the nines, knock yourself out. It's the process of going, the mall is next, time to get my hair done. Why the mall?
What about people who don't have anywhere else to dress up for? I mean, should they? It's like the karaoke singers. They don't have anywhere else to sing. So should they not sing at all?
I think you can do better than the mall. I think you can do better than the mall. There's places that you can go for free. There's restaurants where there's like other people. I don't know. The mall, it's a factory for getting things.
Look, God, I think Gareth has a point. It's like, for a lot of people, they can't think further than the mall. Like, their environments are so like crappy and like, you know, just stagnant, that for them, the mall is the place to be, and they arrive.
Both of you sound very superior, and like you don't understand how it might be to not be. because you two get invited to the odd fancy dinner or something smart every now and then. You've both been to awards shows, and you've both been on stage at these things. Let's say you're just somebody who likes dressing up, and you've got some outfits in your cupboard that you've been looking at for a while.
I think they should be stopped. Because of my opinion, they should be barred from the mall, and it should be removed from the dictionary. Dressing up for the mall should be taken out the dictionary so it ceases to exist. I would like to address a comment, two in fact, but I've lost the one. Congo Chris, no, that's not Congo Chris. Carl DeSantos says, I grew up in the South where we were too rough to sing. No, okay, it's not him either. Somebody said that you and I have got animosity, Gareth, and that we should have a boxing match. I just like to say that I will smash Gareth. I box, and I've been doing so for 8 years. So I'll play Gareth at Scrabble to settle our differences, because that'll be an interesting battle. But you're in a fight. I would also never raise a hand to you, Gareth, because you're my boy. But I just want someone to realize that I will smash you.
Yeah, well, so I'm feeling very intimidated now. I just want to say, like, the people who read shit into conversations that we have on the show, like pent-up aggression between me. Gord and I love to take the piss out of each other, have a little bit of fun, laugh at each other. We don't take ourselves too seriously. Same goes with
I'm here voluntarily, and Gareth invites me.
When I argue with Lebang about something, like we did about Banyana or pit bulls or whatever, then someone goes, "Oh, you could see there's such tension between Gareth and Lebang." I mean, you think I'm gonna carry on with my Tuesday and be like all cross about the fact that Lebang and I had a disagreement, or that Gordon and I don't see eye to eye on salary negotiations for other employees? It's just there's an opportunity to take the piss out of each other, and on this show, you take it. You guys know this.
Disagreeing with Gareth is why I'm here. Like, I come here voluntarily. Gareth invites me, and it's like one of us would stop doing that if there was genuine animosity. But it was quite funny when I first started on the show, which is like 5 years ago, and Ben was on there like every time that I'd be on it, and like Ben and I go at each other, not so much anymore, but Ben and I used to go at each other like hard, and but like. After the second or third show, like Ben had gotten really upset with me. And afterwards, I was like, "Listen, Ben, like, are you really upset with that?" And he was like, "No, dude, this is brilliant. I love it when like you say something I don't like. It's going so well. Don't change anything." But I had a couple of people like literally get in contact, probably via Instagram or something, like, "Geez, Gord, like Ben's really got to be nicer to you. The two of you must make friends and stuff." And me and Ben are like fantastic chums. We get on like a house on fire, and I love the oak. But we did used to lay it on pretty thick, and people thought that we genuinely hated each other, which of course we don't.
It's showbiz. It's literally showbiz. But like, that's what makes it so great. We're never going to have the same opinions on stuff. We're always going to come here and be passionate about the things that we're interested in. And even if we do clash, we're learning from each other. We'd be idiots to,
teachable
call the show off and be pissed.
Teachable
moments. It's a teachable moment.
Part of the reason that you two are on the show, and why I like having both of you on the show, either individually or together like this. The first time you've been on the show together, right? Is because you guys don't just yes everything I say. You don't just go, "Oh yeah, we agree, Gareth." Like, part of the reason I love having people who have strong opinions on things and who have a sense of humor about things is because those are the only people worth talking to. I mean, for God's sake, if you just have people who agree with you the whole time, it's very boring. I would much rather be sitting with someone who has completely diametrically opposed opinions. But I'd also rather be sitting with someone who has those opposite opinions, but also has a sense of humor. And I think clearly those are the qualities of people who I like, sharing this time with in the morning. That's all there is.
I enjoy disagreeing with you,
we
Gareth.
love you too, Gareth.
Someone to vehemently disagree with.
You see, I knew you'd do something like
Nobody
that.
says wrong, stupid shit like you, Gareth. They'll never take your place. My role on the show has always been to derail the serious point, to not allow Gareth to actually talk about the serious, pressing, real-world political shit. Just like, nope, we're going gummy bears now. Like, there was a nuclear standoff in the archipelago of whatever the fuck. I'm like, nope, gummy bears.
Yeah, balance.
So I mean, are you planning anything for the end of the year yet? Have you got any ideas? Because I had this conversation with someone yesterday in person, and they were very uncomfortable about it. They're like, I haven't thought about it because I don't want to think about spending money, and I keep bringing it up with people, and half the people have already got set in stone plans. They've like
Oh
rented
my
a
God.
place. They know what they're doing. They're organized. The other half have no idea what's happening. They will leave it to the last minute. Couldn't care less.
See, you just brought up a happy point and a sore point. Because first of all, yes, I do have end of the year. Well, rather start of the year. I'm going in January on an awesome holiday. A lady friend of mine from Germany that I got quite close to when I was there is coming to see South Africa. I am like very keen to like holiday, home holiday, like see parts of this country that I live in and love, that I haven't gone to the game reserve in 10 years. So that's coming up, and it's going to be cuck expensive, but I'm very excited. And then you segued into like people are worried about money because December, I'm about to release 3 fucking books. And only one that I'm printing in South Africa, which is a gigantic expense. Like they say, if you're a billionaire, if you want to be a millionaire, be a billionaire and start an airline. If you want to be 1,000-aire, be a few 100,000-aire and start a publishing company. So I've got that coming up, and then I've got to go on like a 2-week staycation around South Africa. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm also financially terrified.
Jeez, you guys are so prepared. I'm trying to think like, what am I going to be doing tomorrow evening? Like, do I have a life? What do people do on Wednesday nights? Am I boring? Like, I haven't even thought that far. You guys are so prepared. Like, we'll just roll with the punches, and we'll just keep it moving. Like,
I'm hoping to go to Ngwenya, but I can't get the people there to contact me. They've got a website where they contact us and an email, and they don't respond. And then they've got a phone number. The number you have dialed does not exist. So if anyone knows how to book Ngwenya, holler at me. Then I'm hoping to go to Plet and Knysna and ideally not get eaten by a shark. My idea is to just paper cut a child as they're running into the water and make them more attractive. And then just a whole bunch of Cape Town and the Western Cape. Probably go visit my mom in Swellendam, and that's going to be cuck expensive.
That sounds good though.
I think if you live in Cape Town and somebody wants to come see South Africa, but also see like what your life is like, do the best of Cape Town, and then I think like the game reserve and a bit of Plet and Knysna and a bit of driving around is probably, because you can't go see everything. Joburg sucks. There's a lot of places that are less than spectacular. But what would you say if you were trying to show someone the best of South Africa and you wanted to add one destination that I haven't mentioned? So my thing is game reserve, Cape Town, Plet and Knysna.
God, I have to stop you. I have to stop you there with the game reserve thing. I feel like that is like so predictable. Everybody that like comes to the country's like, oh, lions in your backyard.
If you've never seen
your pet giraffe.
If you've never seen any of that outside of a zoo in your life, you've never been to the Southern Hemisphere, let alone Africa, you've got to go and do 3 days there. I mean, come on. The game reserve's awesome.
I would say, it's a tough one. The Drakensberg's quite pretty. I mean, that could be something someone might like to see. But yeah. But honestly, like, you know what a friend of mine from America really loved was going to the Cradle of Humankind. And it's right here in Joburg, and we don't think about it very often. But you can actually go to the site where they dig and watch the archaeologists doing their thing. There are museums around South Africa that are very good. I don't know where like one place is. Nothing's popping into my mind immediately. But I mean, I believe that there are, a couple of gems around the Western Cape. You just mentioned a couple of places too. Someone said to me, in fact, my brother just got back from a little place called Greyton, and he says it's such a charming little place. That's very pretty.
Aaron's is bloody magical as well. That's beautiful. I don't think it's worth like a very expensive new leg of the trip though, because I mean we could make a list of 1,000 places in South Africa that are beautiful and lovely for a visit. I mean, of course, but I'm saying like if you've got to pick the must-do things, and I really do think the game reserve, especially if you're from Europe and you've literally never been here, I think that it's like something you've got to do. Although I understand it's a bit played out if you like have done a family holiday in a chalet with Brian for your whole life. But I think that that's a winner, and I think that Plet and Knysna is just beautiful, and also you can swim in the sea there, and like not a shark joke. Like the water's warm enough. The KZN and that is pretty much the only places where there's a combination of beautiful beach and water you can survive swimming in. and Cape Town in the Western Cape.
And MM says you could go to Nkandla. You could take them there. There's a fire pool and amphitheater. That's not a bad idea. I mean,
I'd need to take Glenfiddich at 25,000 rand to get in.
Hey, 45,000. You have to bump the cheese up. Don't leave that money in your boot, bro.
Yeah, is it 45? Is the going rate for a tour of Nkandla? Shit, it's gone up. Inflation.
Yes, Shani also agrees with me. Southern Drakensberg, so many other places, the world in one country and more. But that is a good question, Gordo. I do think we need to apply our minds to this a little bit. If you had a friend coming from overseas and you wanted to show them the best of SA.
But you can't go everywhere. We can't make a list of everything that's nice because there's so much of that. Like you got to choose 4 highlights. Like that's probably a good challenge. You're doing the same project as me. You got to take someone. You're going 4 places. Where do you go?
Lebang, where would you go? I mean, what would you put on the list?
I mean, obviously, I would put, the most beautiful. So definitely there by the Cape, the plates, the blah, blah, blahs, just so that they can see the beauty, the mountains, all of that. But a part of me would really like to show them, and this is going to sound cliche as shit, but I feel like because we live in such an unequal country, I feel like if you guys want to see like what's really popping in this country, take these people to the Gali, take them to freaking Gugulethu, take them to Langa, where people are freaking suffering just because, like, you're a tourist and you're seeing all the flashy lights.
No, I completely agree, but I just think that you're not going to be able to avoid that. Like, there's no way to travel 100%. Around in South Africa without seeing the disparity. And I said to my lady friend, and I said to a couple of other people overseas, my thing of South Africa is that it's at once the best and worst place in the world, and it is not just like figuratively, but it has like the widest disparity in terms of quality of life. I think it's South Africa and Brazil that have the biggest schism between.
You're thinking of something called the Gini coefficient, but I just want to go back to what Lebang said here. And like, I don't think we as South Africans should be ignoring the fact that we have this huge inequality in the country, and it's obviously some source of some real pain for us. But I hate the idea of poverty tourism, like where you take people and you show them how shitty some people's lives are, and those people become like animals in a zoo. Because what other country in the world do they take you to the shittiest places and show you and go, look how poor those people, look at them, point at the poor people. Like, they don't take you into swampy Louisiana and show you like these.
I want to go and do Redneck America so badly. I so badly want to go.
No. There's something wrong with like the way we feel like we've got to show off how unhappy.
I don't think it's not showing off, Gareth, and it's definitely in the how. So we're not like literally going, oh, look over there, broke people. Oh, look over. It's literally just like, this is such a big part of this country. We can't ignore it. We are literally one of the most unequal countries in the world. So to say it's you're on holiday, but you need to see the truth of what's actually happening here. We're not saying that's going to be the biggest part of your tour, but you need to be aware of it.
I completely agree, but I just don't think because the brief is what are the 4 like nicest things to do to have a nice experience. But I don't think there's a way. Unless you've got a helicopter and you can fly over the things you don't want to see. I don't think there's a way to avoid seeing that. Even here in Sea Point where I live, you walk outside and there's people sleeping next to a Ferrari.
That's 2 different things. No one is saying you need to blindfold them as they drive from Cape Town Airport into town. They're going to see some pretty awful, just looking on the side of the highway, they'll see how poor people live. So I'm not asking you to like protect these precious little foreign tourists from seeing,
or protect the image of the place being paradise. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But my God, what is, imagine if you go to the UK and they take you to like a trailer park where a bunch of gypsies are bare knuckle fighting, and they say to you, oh, this is one of the things that tourists should come to Britain to see. Or they take you into Manchester's worst neighborhood, and you see like families shooting up
I went to Manchester to see the
majority of the people are living like that.
I don't want to see.
If it's a big part of that place, and majority of the population is living like that, then they should. There's definitely they owe it to those people. Charge it to the game if you have to. But what you're not going to do is act like this is paradise, because for majority of the people, it's definitely not. And sure, you're a tourist. I get it. You're here to see the good stuff.
Poverty does not equal virtue, and poverty is the same all over the world. Poor people are poor people everywhere in the world. If you go to India and you don't go and see, Goa and the amazing things there, and these these ancient parts of like of what's the place called, Rajasthan, and you go to places like New Delhi. You go straight to the slums of Bangladesh, and you go and sit next to the Ganges River where people are burning their dead relatives on there, and it stinks. That's fine. That's up to you. If you like
It's
poverty
a lot,
tourism,
yeah.
I wouldn't put
You
a friend.
wouldn't, but
But I still need some pointers on where's the 4 places.
So
because
we'll
I can't
get to
afford
that.
to go everywhere nice. I can't afford to go everywhere nice, but I want to get a good cross section.
Yeah, we'll get to that, Gord. I think there's definitely a palette for some travelers who want to experience a place for what a place actually is, not for what a place sort of masks itself to be on the internet or whatever the case. There's people that generally just like want to experience the realness of a joint. And I'm not that person. You are definitely not that person. But I definitely think there's a market for that. People who are like, hey, I'm in a different country. What is it really like here for the average
I feel
person?
that. I did that in Mexico. Like I went to Mexico City, which is kind of a place that's quite rugged and it's not like fancy and whatever. Because Mexico, like the coastal areas are beautiful and geared for tourism, and the Mexico City is like very polluted and very overpopulated and stuff. But they told me when I got there, like, first of all, don't use the public transport, don't eat food from like non-restaurants, like street food or whatever. Like don't do all this and don't do that. And I made friends with the bellhop in the hotel, and I was like jolling with him and his mates. I just walked to the tram station. I got lost, and I really enjoyed that experience. Although I probably, in retrospect, could easily have gotten kidnapped, because that really does happen. They do kidnap tourists. But like, I wanted to go and do, first of all, it was a thing at the age I was, like 27 or so, of like, I was told not to do something, so fuck you, I'm going to go do it. And also like, I wanted to know, like, why is this something that I'm supposed to not experience? And yeah, there was a lot of poverty. It reminded me a lot of like inner city Joburg, where it's like, you feel like there's a degree of danger and that like nothing's been fixed in decades, but there was a real vibe, and there was a real like coolness of the people, and like a normalness that I related to. I found like after I partied with these homies and I went after the jawl, they took me back to their place. These were like Douglasdale townhouses that they all live in, except with massive water coolers because you can't drink the water. And I like really related to normal life away from the hotels and the tourist spots. But I wasn't trying to go and look at the shitness and be like, wow, look how shitty this is. These people.
There are people who do, and they usually become like volunteers for some NGO, and they're welcome to it. But I don't think that's a holiday destination. And don't get me wrong, I certainly don't mean that poorer neighborhoods don't have interesting things for you to see. I mean, there was a time where no one would go into Soweto except the people who lived in Soweto. Now Soweto is definitely a stop on the tourist agenda.
Yeah.
But driving past shacks, I fail to see how that could be interesting or illuminating to anyone. Sorry. It's just not, I don't understand.
This is reminding me of there's a show that I once saw many years ago on Netflix. It's probably still available, about like this guy who is like a pro traveler. He would go from like city to city, just finding out things about that place. And when he landed in South Africa, he's an Australian guy. I wish I remember the name of the show. When he got to South Africa, he went to Alexandra, and they were like, dude, be careful. Oh my gosh, Alexandra, those people are hectic. It's not safe. But he went there and he was like, this place was chill. These people were great. I don't know what the huff and puff is about. And then in the same episode, he goes to Orania. And now he's, he's seeing the differences in like the vibes and the energy. And his feedback was,
I won't even go to Orania.
Dude, his feedback was Orania was the place that was whack and boring, because those people are like always on edge, like waiting for something to happen. And he's literally just like this guy that travels all over the world. And this conversation is making me think about that. And it's like, you won't really know until you get there.
I just want to point out that, like, we had a bunch of German tourists killed on their way to some place in Mpumalanga just the other day. You don't hear about this kind of thing happening in, Ireland, where it's all. So we got to be careful as well. We've got to be realistic about this. You don't want to put people in obvious harm. And there are some parts of South Africa that are more dangerous than others. You go into Hillbrow, even if you're just a tourist, you are going to take your life in your hands. So just think about it.
The worst thing that happened in Ireland when I was there was my 16-year-old niece got whistled at by some 16-year-old roadmen. These like youngsters that dress all tough with the same outfit and the haircut. And I was like, okay, there's 5 of these guys. And they're sort of looking, glaring at me like, what you going to do? And I'm like, well, I would just drib all of you to death if you did anything. But
I got to end the show. We've got to get to blind history. Sorry.
We're having too much fun, Gord. We're having way too much fun here. Sorry.
Time's up. Time is up. Sorry, we got to get to an episode of Blind History. We were talking about the Godfather reunion earlier.
People can download that shit whenever they want. Let's carry on talking.
No, this is how it works on a Tuesday. Sorry.
I love it. I love it here.
Lebang and Gordo, thank you both very much. Here is a brand new episode of Blind History, and it is about Lucky Luciano, who is the original gangster. And I mean that in the full sense of that word, that term. Here he is. Take a listen to this. Long before Mario Puzo wrote The Godfather, and before Brando and Pacino brought the book's characters to life on the big screen, the real Godfather, Capo del Tutti Capo, Lucky Luciano, ruled over the world of organized crime. In many ways, he was the founding member. Gambling, prostitution, guns, and shallow graves were his stock in trade. And he had the power to make his enemies sleep with the fishes and his allies made men. He was public enemy number one, and he remains the original gangster.
It's time for another mob, boss. We're going to go back to the mob.
We're going to talk about Lucky Luciano. I really found this guy fascinating. He's one of the most interesting people. And I'm not one of those people. You're much more of the mob guy. You love these stories of these mobsters. I didn't know anything about this dude until we researched this episode. And I'm so glad we're doing him. What Capo del Tutti Capo, yeah? This
boss of bosses.
The boss of bosses, right.
Yeah.
So Anthony Medera and I are here again for another episode of Blind History. We're focusing on Charles Lucky Luciano, whose real name was Salvatore. But he liked being called Charles. He thought Sal or Sally was a bit effeminate.
Yes, so you needed to change that. So you did change it. You know, why not? You could change anything.
Like a lot of these guys, he was born in Sicily.
Yeah.
But at 9 years old, he was already in New York, and he was already running a protection racket.
But I think that, you know, if we had to just start with a little bit of compassion.
Sure.
You know, the parents wanted to escape because his dad was a miner. And they were living in a compound. And not a miner as in young, but a miner in the...
Worked in the mines.
It works in the mines. And then he thought he's going for a better life. But sadly, they went from the pot into the frying pan because in Mulberry Street in those days on the Lower East Side, it was just absolute slums where they lived. And he was put into school. He couldn't speak any English. And he was chucked into school because he was the oldest of the siblings. And I think effectively he just couldn't cope. And he was the type of personality that you know, stuff this. If I can't, you know, I'm not going to hang around. So he tried for 4 years, and in the end he dropped out because it was an impossible task. He was really set up to fail.
Listen, life was hard.
Very hard.
At that point. It was really tough, and especially for immigrants in New York. Not an easy place.
At the time, I mean, he already showed his gift, and so he started protecting. And this is what they called them, the Young Turks, the new Italians, the ones that were born in Italy or who just moved over when they were very young. They were more open to mixing with the Irish and the Jewish
all the other
communities.
immigrants. They kind of, even though they didn't all love each other, they had a very open-minded idea. And in fact, this guy, unlike so many of the other Italians who only wanted to stick to Italians, he got that, like, if he worked with the Jews and the Irish and everybody else, he could really do quite well.
And it's exactly what happened. There was the old Italians and the new Italians. So the old Italians, when they came across when they were already older in their 20s, 30s, and they set up mob operations, but they were very much old school in tradition, loyalty. So they were so busy in fighting with each other and
There were vendettas and family issues from the old country.
All that type of stuff. And then the problem with this was that you're going to whack him, and then his friend is going to whack him, and then find out that you set the whack, and you're going to get whacked and whacked and whacked. If you listen to Charles,
eventually wipe everybody out.
Yeah, so it's unnecessary. So the old boys, they got whacked, and then the young guys took over.
Well, this guy, if we had to look at the big picture of Luciano, he really was the guy who started the 5 families.
Correct. Yes.
And he was also the guy who decided, put aside your internal differences. Let's run this as a business. There's money to be made. Stop fighting with each other and let's make this work. Organized crime,
Yes.
not disorganized crime.
It's 100% right, and also in a perfect environment because they set up the prohibition. In the 1800s, sort of the later 1800s in America, the consumption of alcohol was 3 times more than it is currently today. So there was serious problems.
People were very drunk.
Exactly, and the ladies were the ones that actually started fighting for this because they were getting beaten up all the time. So they started fighting for this prohibition, and finally it did come into play. But many things that we talk about today, like a booze cruise.
Yeah.
So because there was prohibition, they had these ships that you could go on. You can just go on a booze cruise for 2-3 days where you could just drink, and it was offshore.
Right.
And they had these ships lined up just outside the international waters, and they used to call them the rum row.
Right.
Which were all these ships lined up with rum in them, so they could work a ways of getting it onto mainland New York. And the other thing was, if you look at all the business, pharmacies grew from 50 to 500 pharmacies because doctors could prescribe alcohol for medicinal purposes.
Well, there's that very famous picture of that horrendously ugly woman. And it says, lips that touch liquor shall not touch ours. And you think to yourself now, well, nobody wanted to, honey, but I mean, at that point, they were the ones who'd pushed for the prohibition.
Correct.
And what a disastrous idea.
Well,
because obviously, as you say, it pushes everything underground and offshore.
Yeah.
And then you can't tax it. There's no control. This is where Al Capone and people like that made all their money. And
Correct.
Luciano was right at the dead center. New York, which was obviously the biggest city.
Arguably, Luciano was probably 10 times as big as Capone.
Sure.
Capone was just good at PR.
Yeah.
But Joseph Kennedy, if we look at the... so this
Right.
prohibition really did make the Kennedy wealth.
Yeah. So I suppose the thing that he's most well known is he set up the commission, and it sounds like such a legit thing. The commission was basically all the most important mob bosses or organizations from all over America, East Coast, West Coast, Florida, Philadelphia, Chicago, it included Al Capone. They all had a vote on the commission, but he was the big boss.
Yeah, the boss of bosses.
He never wanted to be called the big boss. He didn't like that. He started off working for Boss Joe.
Yes. So right in the very beginning, these were the old boys that were there. There was 2 ways to go. His siblings went the straight way, and then he said, either I go the straight way or I go the fast way. He picked the fast way. He made $250 in a craps game at the age of 14. And that was more than his dad's yearly wage. So then he started the racketeering and protectionism, and then he was protecting the Jews effectively from himself. Because
Right.
you'd get the Italians to beat up the Jews, and then
Right.
he would protect them. But one guy refused to be protected. He was a small little guy. And he said, stuff your oaks, da-da-da-da. And it was Meyer Lansky, actually a Russian. I can't pronounce his name, but he's later on they called him Meyer Lansky. And together with Bugsy Siegel, who was very notorious and scary.
Yeah.
If you see a picture, please, as the listeners, go look at a mugshot of Bugsy Siegel.
Right.
Scary, scary. But they were in partnership, and Charles never lost sight of that. Arnold Rothstein, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, and then the new guys on the block, which is Genovese,
Gambino came in
Carlo Gambino.
Right.
So all of them,
and we left off Costello, obviously.
Luciano joined the 5-point scam. They all did.
Mm-hmm.
And even Al Capone was involved in that. And then he joined Massero. But in turn, there was another guy that was also there, and his name was Maranzano. Masseria and Maranzano fought each other, and it was actually quite a famous Castellarami war.
Right.
And it was actually stupid because they just murdered each other.
Right.
This is literally where they got part of what The Godfather's about, the movie, is the way they whacked Massero. Luciano invited him for lunch. They had lunch at this beautiful restaurant, and they were playing cards after lunch, and he says he's just going to the bathroom, and in walked the Jewish mob. They came in and they put 40, 50 bullets into him.
Wow.
So he did his job. Maranzano said, thumbs up. But then Luciano said, this guy's going to whack me. So he whacked Maranzano, and he left the card in his hands. Also famous. And that's where the whole Godfather thing emanated from. But then he said he's going to stop all of it. And that's where you come to the commission. He said, now we stop all these wars. All of us are going to make money, and we're going to go underground so the cops don't catch us.
So obviously this was running pretty well. He was making lots and lots of money, wore fine suits. He was the prototype of the mafia boss that we would later know. But there was a guy called Dewey who was, he eventually became New York governor, but he was a prosecutor, and he wanted to get Lucky Luciano.
Yeah.
And he got him. All of these guys get caught because of taxes, and in this case also prostitution.
Yeah.
He ran a massive prostitution ring in New York, like just thousands of women.
250 brothels.
I mean, unbelievable the amount of prostitution going on
$12
in
million
New York.
in those days.
$12 million in income. This is big. And he realized things are getting a bit hot, so he tried to run away. He eventually ended up in a place in Arkansas, thinking he could ride it out, but they found him because he was so recognizable. You know, he was notorious. He was picture in the papers, this guy who dressed so well, who lived this extravagant life. So it was only a matter of time before they caught him, and they put him in jail, right?
Correct. And they gave him a sentence, seems like a stiff sentence, because between 30 and 50 years for basically prostitution, running brothels. That's what
But
happened.
he was public enemy number one.
Yes,
right.
he was. So they chucked him in prison, but he ran the business. Now, much later, famously, you get guys like John Gotti, the wannabes, etc., like 50, 60 years later, who tried to do that. They didn't succeed. He ran the prison. He had a guy making food, the most notorious prison on the East Coast. He sat there. All the other inmates were looking after him.
Right.
And he really had a good laugh. He was in for 10.
But he still ran the whole business from prison.
Exactly.
Nothing changed.
Nothing changed.
He kind of deputized Costello and Genovese to do a lot of the
Genovese
stuff.
was a bit of a snake in the grass, but
Well,
who wasn't?
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, so he said, Costello, you're in charge.
Yeah.
Genovese didn't like that at all. And he would later become a problem.
Yeah.
But eventually, thanks to the war, he got out because the Navy intelligence needed to know who was running the harbors and ports in Sicily, who was running the harbors and ports in New York, and the mob knew this better than anyone else. So they basically made a deal with him. They said, help us out. We want to beat the fascists in Italy. We want to beat the Nazis. And he did. He said, I'll help you with whatever, but I want to get out of jail.
Yeah.
They said, cool, but when we take you out of jail, we're going to deport you to Italy. Just get ready. You can't fight this. If you fight that, you try to get in the way, we're going to put you back in jail. So he gets out. And obviously at this point, the war is ended. So local enemies start to become more important to the US government at that point. And they say, you're going straight to Italy. So he picks up his stuff. He goes. Apparently there was a farewell party. Meyer Lansky said they had a big farewell party.
Yeah, they did actually have one.
Did they have it? Because the cops said there's no record of that.
Yeah, some boats came out to Ellis Island because he was sent back to Ellis Island and they had a little party on the banks. There was some crazy stuff going down.
They were like, they brought on a whole bunch of women and booze. And
he said, I'll be back. Then he was shipped off to Italy. Now, I think this is quite an important point to raise here because he spent a couple of months in Rome. He was kicked out of Rome, never allowed to go back. And then he went to Havana.
Yes. Cuba. Why Cuba? Because obviously it was near enough to America, so you could still run things. He also had lots of contacts there. They'd built a hotel. Apparently it was the playground of the rich and famous.
It was Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel's hotel.
Oh.
But they'd already needed to make a big decision on Bugsy Siegel because he was doing, in Las Vegas, he was doing quite a few things wrong. And
And
they agreed to whack him.
Isn't he also a bit of the inspiration behind the story of that movie, Casino, right?
That's him.
That's Bugsy Siegel.
And then they took him out. They killed him and they decided that in Cuba.
He'd become a problem.
But
they organized this big conference in Havana, right? With all the mob bosses. Again, they all came in. They all had a meeting. This is where they wanted to make Lucky the boss of all bosses. And he had a bit of an argument with Genovese there and had him kicked down the stairs. He had a couple of ribs broken.
Yeah.
But he said to him, if you ever call me this again or you ever try any of this stuff again, you work for me. Don't make me lose my temper.
Yeah.
And then,
in the end, they set him up with drugs in his house and they told the cops there's drugs in the house and he was put away. And then Frank Costello took over. That's a little bit later on, but there's a small caveat here which is quite interesting because Frank Sinatra has been linked to the mafia for years. But clearly, he was a mobster.
Yeah.
If you have to look at his life, his parents came from Italy. So his dad married an American lady with Italian background. She started a pub and it became famous for the mobsters to go there. And that's where Frank started singing. So he was always with the mobsters. So people think he started getting involved with the mobsters. He was always involved with them. And they invited him Frank Sinatra to Cuba to do a massive concert for the opening of the hotel. So it was all fitting in beautifully. And Sinatra would say, I was doing a show there. It just so happened that they were there, whatever it was. But, but Frank was fully involved with these, which is quite a nice caveat. You get Joe Kennedy and you get Frank Sinatra and Lucky Luciano. They were very close.
And also, I mean, all these names that we get for the mob, La Cosa Nostra, he came up with that.
Correct.
And the, the boss with the consigliere and then the underboss and all these generals and then the soldiers. This was all an organogram he devised.
Because he wanted to make it organized crime. He wanted it to be like a proper business. And effectively he made it like that.
Right.
And the omerta means, you're sworn to silence. So if you're a made man, you would go into this ceremony, and that ceremony carried on for the next 80, 90 years. They cut your finger, and then the blood you drip onto this picture of a saint.
Right.
And then they would take that picture of the saint with your blood on it and burn it. And they say, and effectively, you answer first and foremost to the mob family, then to God, then to your family.
Wow. And
this is what happens to you symbolically. This is what happens to you if you go against that, you burn.
Wow.
So those are all the things that he put in place. And Cosa Nostra was our thing. So this is our thing. I don't rat on you. You don't, we don't do those things. He famously showed that in 1929. They put a hit on him. This is quite early in his career. It was during the Castellarami Wars. It could have either been Massera or Maranzana, whoever did it. And they put him in a limousine, took him out to the harbor, and they cut his throat. And they slashed him across the eye.
That's why he had the one droopy eye, right?
Correct.
But he survived. A policeman actually found him, and
correct.
That's why they called him Lucky too, wasn't it?
Yes,
that's one of the reasons 100%. They say that. Okay.
Another interesting thing was Lucanio was their name. So Salvatore Lucanio, and you mentioned it a little bit that he didn't like the name Sally. And so he changed it to Charles. But also the cops because he was arrested so many times, but most times he was never chucked in jail. But wrote it on the rap sheet, it was Luciano. So then he kept Luciano because it felt better. But if you look at his career, he was actually quite lucky.
No, he was. I mean, tremendously. And a good gambler too, by the way.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the end of his life, because he eventually his travel was severely limited. The US government were onto him. He couldn't go to Cuba. He couldn't go to South America. He was basically stuck in Italy, and he couldn't even travel much in Italy. He was banned from Rome.
Yeah, he took his passport away. That was the end.
So what happened to him at the end?
This is what I found very interesting and that I didn't know about Lucky Luciano. He was, I think 3 or 4 years before his death, he was running a multi-million-dollar drug operation, shipping drugs out of Italy into Italy. He was running massive operations. The Italian cops were onto him, but they're not onto him. Onto him, and they're not onto him. He married his childhood sweetheart, not childhood, but the only sweetheart that he really loved.
Right.
She was a dancer in Italy somewhere, and I think like 30 years his junior. He ran this operation till the day he died. Apparently, they had the facts they were going to throw away the key in the next year. And he died of a heart attack before they could get to him. So he was deep into the
But wasn't he also trying to have a movie made of his life, and he was waiting at the airport in Naples?
That's exactly what, yes.
And that's where he had the heart attack.
Correct.
While he was waiting for the movie producer to arrive so they could do the story of his life.
This is what the biography says, is that he was having second thoughts because of Omerta and, it's our thing, Cosa Nostra. He was a bit worried on how this movie is going to be portrayed.
Didn't they also arrange for him to be buried in New York?
You can actually go and I've actually visited his little grave setup.
Really?
Yeah, it's in Queens.
Huh.
And then there's also some famous areas like Mulberry Street.
Right.
When you go into New York and you go down to Mulberry Street, that was the famous place where all the Italians hang out. The Ravens Club is there where famously the Pope, Paul Castellano, and John Gotti used to meet.
Right.
And that was his home. So you had a small funeral of 800 people odd in Naples. And then he had, I think there was north of 2,000 people that came maybe for interest or whatever it was in New York to pay their respects. And at that funeral was Carlo Gambino. And a newspaper reporter asked his brother, because Charles Lucky put this big painting of a saint. And he said, what saint is that? And etc. And what is the history behind it? He said, I have no clue. There are no saints in my family.
Wow. This guy had no children either, huh?
He famously said that he doesn't want his kids to grow up like a Luciano.
And he blamed Dewey for having the reputation of a gangster.
Correct,
He said if
yeah.
Dewey hadn't prosecuted him so relentlessly, he would never have been called a gangster. He was just a businessman, in his opinion.
But if you look at his, but I think, Gareth, if you look at his life, he was working very hard to keep everything quiet.
Wow.
You know, he knew that you need to keep these things quiet, fly under the radar. And he was very much like that. And actually, he said near the end, he had some regrets. He said, I should have just been not an honest. He says, because the guys that are doing it legally are just as dishonest as I am.
Yeah.
And you need to be clever to be dishonest. And he says he probably could have made his millions on the other side of the fence. And that's a regret that he had.
Well, Time magazine in 1998, they said he was the criminal mastermind among the top 20 most influential builders and titans of the 20th century. So they even regard him as one of the 20 smartest people who lived in the 1900s.
It goes very much back to what we see as the mafia, keeping everything quiet, dressing in these immaculate suits. Any whacking, you can't pin it on them.
Right.
It's sort of almost romanticized. And that was the era of Charles Lucky Luciano.
And he was the guy. He was the original, the real.
The boss of bosses.
Right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Blind History. Every episode is available on the Cliff Central app, cliffcentral.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the next episode,
he took 2 lives for every one he improved. And if we think about it, I don't think there's anybody on this planet that can be responsible for north of 70 million deaths of his own people, it has to be said.